It was supposed to be just another graduation speech. But when a student walked on stage and called out Bill Clinton over his past, the crowd froze. Her voice cut like a blade. "Do you remember what your crime bill did to families like mine?" Clinton paused, then stepped forward. What he said next changed everything. The air was thick with summer. Georgetown's campus was alive with ceremony. Folding chairs lined like dominoes across the lawn, proud parents fanning themselves, and graduates adjusting gowns in the heat. A familiar voice had just begun to echo through the loudspeakers. "Thank you all for having me today," said Bill Clinton, his southern cadence warm, slow, unmistakable. "You've worked hard. You've earned your place in the world." The applause was respectful, if a little subdued. Cameras panned across the stage, capturing the former president framed by blue banners and white florals. To most, this was just another ceremonial gig for Clinton, another photo op, another inspirational send-off. He had done this countless times. But this day had other plans. About 3 minutes into his speech, just as he was quoting Mandela, movement in the audience drew attention. A single graduate stepped out from the fourth row. She didn't run. She didn't yell. She simply walked, in full cap and gown, straight toward the stage. Security noticed, but they didn't move. She didn't look like a threat. She looked like she belonged. She reached the stairs. No one stopped her. "Mr. President," she said, loud enough that every mic caught it, "do you remember what your crime bill did to families like mine?" The words rang out clean, unapologetic. The crowd didn't know what to do. Gasps. Silence. Phones in the air. One of the university deans stood halfway up from his seat, then sank back down. Clinton stood still behind the podium, expression unreadable. The woman was Avery James, valedictorian, child of a man who had served a decade behind bars for a nonviolent offense, a rising star on campus, and in this moment, a symbol of reckoning. Clinton didn't react right away. For a few long seconds, the silence grew louder than any speech could, and then, slowly, he stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look down. He simply began. "What you just did took courage," he said, his voice low but clear, "and you deserve an answer." The wind shifted slightly. The audience, now holding its collective breath, leaned in. "I won't pretend," he continued, "that policy doesn't have consequences. I won't hide behind good intentions. I know what that bill became for people like your father, and I've carried that knowledge with me." Somewhere in the crowd, a parent began to cry. Somewhere else, a student whispered, "He's actually answering her." But before I explain, Clinton said, pausing, eyes locked on Avery, "I want you to know that this moment, is why I still believe in what America can be. Because we raise citizens like you, brave enough to ask uncomfortable questions in front of thousands." Avery stood her ground, but her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "So yes," Clinton said, "let's talk, and I'll tell you everything." Phones were now streaming, hashtags blooming, reporters scrambling. The story was no longer about a graduation speech. It was about a reckoning, a response, and a man reclaiming his voice. Bill Clinton stood on that stage with a calm that didn't come from certainty, but from years of learning how to carry the weight of his own decisions. The applause had stopped. The sun was warm on his shoulders. And for once, the teleprompter was useless. He wasn't speaking from a script now. He was speaking from a scar. "When I signed the crime bill in 1994, he began, his eyes still locked on Avery's, "I thought I was doing the right thing." A few heads nodded. Others looked down. Back then, the country was afraid. Crime was surging. Entire communities were begging for help. Mayors, governors, activists, they all wanted something done, and fast. He stepped away from the podium. Not dramatically, just enough to show he wasn't hiding behind anything. "We gave them what they asked for, but we gave them too much, too fast, and with too little thought about what it would do, not just in the cities that were burning, but in the homes that were already barely hanging on." Avery didn't interrupt. She didn't move. She listened. "I knew there were risks," Clinton said, "but I underestimated the consequences. That's on me." You could hear a pin drop. "I thought mandatory minimums would stop dealers. They didn't. I thought 3 strikes would scare off criminals. It destroyed families. I thought I was protecting neighborhoods. I ended up hurting some of the very people I meant to help. His voice cracked, just slightly. Enough for the crowd to notice. Your father's story, he said, nodding to Avery, is one of thousands. And I can't take back what happened to him. I wish I could. He turned back to the audience now, his voice rising, not in volume but in clarity. But this is what leadership demands, not perfection, not defense, but accountability. He let the words hang in the air. Too often, we measure strength by how loud we speak, or how stubborn we are. But real strength? It's standing here and saying, yes, I made that decision. And yes, I was wrong about parts of it. A murmur of surprise fluttered through the crowd. Clinton wasn't deflecting. He wasn't spinning. He was confessing. Avery's hands lowered to her sides. Her chin tilted, just slightly. Respect? Maybe. Surprise? Certainly. The policies in that bill were aimed at reducing fear, Clinton continued. But in doing so, we created new fears, ones that haunted communities of color, poor families, young people who never got a second chance. I've met the men who lost decades to it. I've seen the moms who never saw their sons walk free again. I've looked them in the eye, and I've told them what I'm telling you now. He took a breath. I was wrong. Not entirely. Not on every line. But wrong enough that it matters. Gasps turned into tears for some. A graduating law student whispered to her friend, I've never heard a politician say that. Clinton turned back to Avery, who had not stepped down, but no longer looked like an accuser. Now she looked like a witness. You asked me if I remembered what it did to families like yours. I do now, and I will never forget it again. Silence fell once more. Not awkward, not hostile, just full. But I didn't come here to apologize and leave, he said. I came here to challenge every one of you to do better than I did. His voice shifted now, commanding, urgent, presidential. You will inherit a country built on imperfect choices. You'll be given tools, power, platforms, and you'll be expected to fix what others broke, including me. The audience leaned forward. The speech, once interrupted, had transformed. Don't just shout louder, he said. Listen deeper. Don't just tweet outrage. Build policy. Don't cancel. Correct. Then softer. And when you make mistakes, and you will, own them. Publicly. Completely. That's the only way you get to keep leading. Avery blinked. Clinton extended a hand. She looked at it for a beat, and took it. The crowd erupted. Some stood. Some wept. Others stared, not quite sure what they had just witnessed. What they'd seen wasn't just a moment of redemption. It was a generational handoff, messy, human, honest. And the internet hadn't even caught up yet. It started with one phone. A graduating senior had captured the moment when Avery took Clinton's hand, just a 10-second clip, grainy and unedited. They posted it on TikTok with a caption. Clinton just admitted he was wrong. In public. I've never seen this before. It took 8 minutes to hit 10,000 views. By the time Clinton finished his speech and walked off stage, Twitter was ablaze. Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts exploded with excerpts of the moment. His words, her courage, the silence, the handshake. Hashtag surged. Hashtag Clinton moment. Hashtag she spoke he listened. Hashtag owning the past. Hashtag 1994 bill. Hashtag from policy to people. Cable news wasn't far behind. CNN ran the headline. Clinton. I was wrong about the crime bill. Full remarks shape political landscape. Fox News countered with, Clinton confronted by student, delivers unexpected confession. Even TikTok creators who weren't even born when the 1994 crime bill passed began stitching the clip. Reaction videos multiplied. I've never cried watching a political speech before. This is how you answer for your past. Imagine if more leaders did this. One TikTok, featuring a slow zoom on Avery's face as Clinton began to speak, racked up 12 million views in 24 hours. Over soft piano music, the caption read, she asked. He answered. The world listened. For some, it was validation. For others, it was too little, too late. A black mother in Atlanta posted a thread. I lost my brother to that bill. I don't forgive, but I saw something I never expected, honesty. And that matters. A former prosecutor tweeted, "We built careers off of policies no one questioned." That clip made me pause. It should make you pause too. Avery herself posted only once. I wasn't looking for an apology. I wanted accountability. I got more than I expected. The comment section was flooded, support, criticism, confessions, and a wave of people asking, "Is this the start of something bigger?" But not everyone was impressed. Pundits on both sides sharpened their takes. A staged redemption arc. One conservative columnist scoffed. Clinton's trying to rewrite history. Too neat. Too convenient. Others pushed back. You're missing the point. He didn't erase the past. He owned it. In front of the people it affected. The most viral moment wasn't even the handshake. It was a 14-second clip where Clinton looked out into the crowd and said, "Don't just cancel. Correct." That phrase found its way onto t-shirts, memes, protest signs, even whiteboards in high schools. College students began referencing it in debates. A podcast episode dissecting that single sentence hit #1 on Spotify's political commentary chart. And just like that, a moment that could have been a PR disaster became a cultural flashpoint. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the Democratic Party's media team was scrambling. A strategist looked up from her laptop and said, "Do we ride this wave or try to clean it up?" An aide replied, "Too late. The internet already did both." Bill Clinton, back in his hotel suite, sat on the edge of the bed, tie loosened, phone on silent. He hadn't checked the news. He hadn't read the tweets. He just stared out the window. Not smug. Not broken. Just still. "I wasn't trying to go viral," he finally said to the aide sitting across from him. "I was trying to tell the truth." The aide nodded, unsure what to say. "You think I helped or hurt the cause today?" Clinton asked. The aide shrugged. "Depends who you ask." A beat passed. Clinton smiled faintly. "Then I guess I finally did something bipartisan." By the next morning, the clip had crossed 50 million views. Every major outlet had picked it up. News anchors debated the meaning of Clinton's words. Podcasts broke down his tone, his posture, even the pause before he said, "I was wrong." Op-eds flooded in, some praising his candor, others accusing him of strategic repentance. But for Avery James, the girl in the gown, the story didn't feel viral. It felt heavy. She hadn't left her dorm room since the ceremony. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. CNN wanted a follow-up interview. A book agent had emailed her twice. Activists were calling her brave, courageous, a symbol of accountability. But all Avery could think about was her father, and how she wished he could have seen it. He died in prison, 2 years before her high school graduation. No handshake could change that. Her roommate knocked gently. "There's someone at the door. Said he has a letter. For you. From Bill Clinton." Avery blinked. "What?" Downstairs stood a staffer from Clinton's office. Not Secret Service. Not press. Just a man in a suit with tired eyes and a white envelope. "I was told to give this to you directly," he said. "He wrote it last night." He turned and walked away. Avery stared at the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside, one sheet of paper. Handwritten. "Dear Ms. James, you asked me a question no one else ever dared to. Not like that. Not in that way. And not with that kind of courage. You didn't just speak for your father. You spoke for a generation my decisions helped shape and hurt. I can't give your father back. But I can give you this. Not excuses, not noise, but the truth. You were right to ask. And I'll spend the rest of my days trying to answer with more than words. If you ever want to speak again, not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but human to human, I'll be there. Sincerely, Bill Clinton." Avery read it twice. 3 times. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like the door had opened further. Across the country, the moment continued to ripple. High school teachers played the clip in civics class. Law professors assigned it in coursework on restorative justice. Pastors quoted Clinton's "Don't just cancel, correct" line in Sunday sermons. But the most surprising response came from someone Clinton hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. Round Pushpin, Little Rock, Arkansas. A man in his late 50s sat in a modest home, watching the replay for the third time. He had served 12 years under the federal sentencing guidelines of the 1994 bill. He hadn't cried since prison, but today he did. Then he opened a dusty box from under his bed. Inside, an old photo of him and a 1993 campaign poster of Clinton, folded and faded. He opened his laptop, typed 2 lines into an email, then deleted them, wrote 2 more, then pressed send. Subject: you finally said it. You don't know me, but your words mattered, not because they fixed anything, but because they meant I wasn't crazy all those years. It meant you finally saw us. He signed only his initials. Meanwhile, Clinton's inner circle was growing nervous. 1-8 warned, "You're opening old wounds. This could backfire." Clinton responded quietly, "Some wounds only heal when you finally stop pretending they're not there." He didn't do a press tour. He didn't sell a book. He didn't tweet. He simply kept his promise. He showed up to meetings with families, to events on sentencing reform, to roundtables that never made the news. Not to fix his legacy, but to own it. That week, a political cartoon appeared on the front page of the Washington Post. It showed a podium, a graduation stage, and a single handwritten quote underneath. "Real leadership doesn't rewrite history. It faces it." 2 months had passed. The headlines had faded. The hashtags had quieted. But something deeper had lingered. Something quieter than virality. Slower than outrage. Change. Avery declined most interviews. She had no interest in being a pundit, a celebrity, or a brand. She returned to her graduate studies, walked to class like anyone else, and tried to make sense of how her question had cracked something open in a former president, and maybe in the country. She never expected to see him again. But on a humid July evening, during a closed-door panel on criminal justice reform at Howard University, she found herself seated in the front row of a modest auditorium. And there he was, Bill Clinton. No cameras, no podium, just a circle of metal chairs, coffee cups, notebooks, and voices trying to map a better path forward. They hadn't spoken since the letter. At the end of the session, as the room emptied, he walked toward her, slowly, thoughtfully. They didn't shake hands this time. They just stood there, face to face. Clinton spoke first. "You asked me a hard question. I gave an honest answer. But the real work, that's still yours." Avery smiled, not politely, not nervously, but like someone who had found ground beneath her feet. "I didn't ask it to trap you," she said. "I asked because I needed to know if people who make the rules ever really look back." He nodded. "Some don't. I didn't. Not fast enough." They stood there in silence for a long moment. No applause. No flashbulbs. Just mutual recognition. Later that night, as Avery left the building, she passed a group of students discussing policy, reform, impact. One of them turned to her and said, "You really changed him." Avery paused, then said, "No. He changed himself. I just gave him the chance." If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and press the like button.